So my first question, a few days ago, we all know Israel launched the ground operation. The goal is to eliminate the basis infrastructure of Hamas in Gaza City. What is the current situation in the Gaza Strip? Has the most challenging stage, the entry of Israeli troops into local buildings, begun? And what consequences can this all lead to?
As you mentioned already, it's a very, very complicated stage. The entry to the very overcrowded places, which now are almost empty, due to the multiple efforts of the Israeli forces, because they try to help to evacuate as many civilians as it's possible, because basically. When we're talking about hostages in Gaza Strip, we have to understand that there are not only Israeli and foreign hostages in the captivity of Hamas, but there are like hundreds of civilians which are against Hamas probably, and they're kept as hostages as a human shield as well in Gaza City and in all of the refugee camps around the Gaza City, which actually separate cities as well. So basically, after Hamas attack, they were, let's say, inviting IDF, Israeli Defense Forces, into Gaza for rapid attack on the Gaza Strip. And Hamas was prepared for it. All of the tunnels were prepared. There were munitions ready for this, like, very, very fast attack of the Israeli army. But due to the previous experience, the IDF commanders decided to prepare as much as they can for the ground operation in order to save the soldiers and civilians in the Gaza Strip. Because the main idea is to definitely eliminate the infrastructure of terror of Hamas in Gaza and to save all of the hostages. So basically, a lot of journalists and analytics were afraid that the Israeli army will suffer and will have a lot of casualties among soldiers and officers due to the fact that they will have to fight in the very dense area, in a very crowded area in the cities. But what we've seen now, after on the 43rd probably day of the war, after for a couple of weeks, Israeli army is operating inside of the Gaza Strip and the Gaza City exactly. The casualties among the Israeli forces are 48 people. It's not only soldiers, but also commanders in the ranks of major colonels, lieutenant colonels, and others. So, and these are incomparable casualties to the number of Hamas terrorists killed in tunnels and in their bases. Basically, the Israeli army separated the Gaza Strip for two parts, northern and southern. Northern part is now an area of the ground operation. They separated from the bottom and from the top, and then they separated also from the seaside. All of the operation is very complicated and based on the cooperation between the air forces, ground forces, armed troops, and intelligence. So basically, what we know about the Israeli troops movement, we know that when they're moving inside the very hostile environment, when they're surrounded by the terrorists, there are like circle of fire around them, which is created by the artillery and the air forces, which are using precise weapon to attack those terror units that are fighting with the IDF. And what do we know? That Israeli intelligence is very precise and that helped to save one of the hostages, a military girl that was captured on the 7th of October by Hamas, and she was freed in the very first days of the ground operation. Also, during the ground operation, Israeli forces finds a lot of different evidences, including the remains of the Shani Luke, the German-Israeli girl that was kidnapped and showed through all of the TV channels. She was brutally murdered in the Gaza Strip. Also, they found a lot of evidences of the babies kept in the one of the hospitals in Gaza Strip, which was also a very complicated target to operate with for Israeli forces. Because Hamas, as I already mentioned, they're using their own people as a human shield, and they're not operating like an army. They're using hospitals as their headquarters and their military bases, because most of the hospitals have a very equipped and well-built bunkers above them, which are used for keeping hostages and for other military purposes. And we've seen the video made by the press secretary, the spokesperson of the Israeli army, Daniel Agari, who have made a trip for journalists from all over the world showing what is above the Rantisi hospital. And there were evidence that there were special places prepared for hostages. So this is exactly the very complicated part of the operation, operating with the hospitals, with the very, very crowded places and like very density places where a lot of buildings are built wall to wall. So it means that the Israeli army cannot operate very fast, and they cannot operate freely like in the open field when they have everything very clear. On the other hand, we have the southern part of the Gaza Strip, which is now became a very, very big refugee camp for those who managed to escape from the northern part of the Gaza Strip, and which is not so actively targeted by the Israeli army due to the fact that there are like hundreds or more than 1 million of civilians moved there from the north of Gaza Strip. And probably part of the hostages were transferred from the northern part of the Gaza Strip, where now army is operating, to the southern part in order to hide them under the UN schools and hospitals, among the crowded places with hundreds and thousands of civilians. So I believe that this is like what we have for now is very complicated, and what we'll have in a couple of weeks will be overcomplicated. So the most difficult times for Israeli specialists to operate in Gaza are only in the future. We'll see it just in a couple of weeks, probably.
Yeah. Let's imagine that everything is finished, but it seems that no one has an answer to the question what to do with Gaza. So, what to do with Gaza? I ask you.
So I don't have an answer to this question. It's a very complicated. We know that Gaza was occupied by Egypt for a number of years. And we know that there were some proposals of the Israeli authorities that were leaked to the media that they proposed to Egypt to get over to Gaza once again, or help to move people from Gaza Strip to the Sinai Peninsula. But these rumors were, or there's not a rumors, but this proposal was declined by Egypt. There are some ideas of some international forces that will come to Gaza to operate the civil life in the Strip. There is also an idea of again bringing back their Palestinian authorities from the West Bank in order to restore their power in Gaza Strip, which was lost by them in 2007 after Hamas won the democratic elections in the Gaza Strip. But what I've seen through the decades, I'm pretty sure that in any other case, if there will not be any military control inside the Gaza Strip, the threat from the Gaza Strip will be once more up to date, and we'll see it once more rocket flying from Gaza to Ashkelon, Ashdod, or any other cities in the central or even northern Israel. Because since 2005, when Israel left Gaza totally, there were no Jewish villages or kibbutzim or any military presence in Gaza Strip. The only thing that did Hamas and the local authorities was investment in the luxury life of the Hamas leaders and the development of the infrastructure of the terror, which basically lead the people of Gaza to poverty. And I've seen a number of videos filmed by GoPro like before the war, and the Gaza Strip looked very, very poor, despite the fact that more than $40 billion were transferred to Gaza Strip since the mid 90s. And compared to the prices of Palma Jumeirah and other things done in the Arabic world, they could prepare a beautiful piece out of the Gaza. Because for decades, Gaza was known for its beautiful strawberries, for the clothes made there from the ancient times. And people had this possibility to develop agriculture there, fishing, but despite the they had all of the let's say independence inside Gaza. They did not build any infrastructure for making business or international relations with someone, because they elected Hamas, which is a well-known terror organization, which killed dozens of Israelis and foreigners, not only in Israel. Actually, the Hamas came out of the Muslim Brotherhood, which was originally invented in Egypt, like more than 50 years ago, more than 70 probably years ago. And what Egypt authorities did to the leaders of the Muslim Brotherhood, they executed most of them and expelled them out of the country. And that shows the exact how Egypt feels regarding the Hamas or Gaza population, because even in the Arabic world, people understand the threat which brings this organization and their followers to the prosperity of the country that will try to take care of the region. This is the question that is very complicated for finding the solution. And I doubt that anyone in the world, especially the UN, can take control over this area with no military power, with no like very strict rules. I'm not sure that it's possible, because I believe that everything starts with education. And when I see footage from a kindergarten when children for some holiday are acting in a play where one of them are IDF soldiers and other are shahidim, like the martyrs, and the kids of the age of 3 or 4 are pretending to kill each other, are pretending to be martyr shahids, and they pretend that this is a very, very, very cool thing. I'm not sure that this is what should be taught for kids in the age of 3. And I believe that the next power in Gaza should take much more efforts to educate people there, to show them the beauty of the world around, to show how they can interact with their neighbors. Because I saw the video that was shown by the Israeli army with the old footage for 44 minutes of mass killings of Israelis and foreigners on the 7th of October. And I've seen how like civilians in the Gaza Strip were humiliating the bodies of the Israeli soldiers and civilians brought there on the Hamas trucks. And they were like usual people that were spreading candies around the Gaza Strip and celebrating the attack of Hamas on the people, the same people as there are the same people from the both sides of the border, with the same color of blood, with the same love to the nature. I don't know, but the Hamas did everything for creating a cult of death and shahada. They're willing to die for jihad. And this is a thing that actually makes a huge difference between people from both sides of the fence.